My name is Tessa Langford. I'm 32 years old, and 2 summers ago, I nearly died. Not metaphorically, clinically. For one long, eerie night, the doctors in the trauma center didn't expect me to survive. They stood just outside my ICU room, murmuring about hemorrhaging, contusions, and cranial swelling. Machines chirped in rhythmic despair. IVs snaked through my arms. My face was so bruised, no one could recognize me. My body was broken, but I was still there, trapped inside, silent, listening. Someone had called my emergency contacts. Nathan and Loretta Langford arrived just after midnight at Silver Crest Medical Center in Phoenix. I didn't see them. I couldn't move. But I heard everything. Heard Loretta's heels sprinting across the linoleum. Heard Nathan's voice, sharp and cool. What kind of financial burden are we talking about here? There was a pause. Her name, I'd learn later, chose her words carefully. We need consent to operate. Without it, she may not make it through the night. Are you her legal guardians? Loretta's voice dropped, brittle and cold. It's not that simple, she said. Nathan added, we never finalized the adoption. She was with us temporarily. There's no legal tie. A lie. The adoption had been finalized when I was 8. They just didn't want the responsibility now. But she listed you as next of kin, Dr. Mayer said, uneasy. We're not obligated, Loretta replied. We did what we could for her, but we're done. That's when I decided I wasn't going to die, not like this. A few hours later, Nurse Riley contacted Jocelyn, my business partner and closest friend from college. Jocelyn caught the next red eye from Seattle. She signed the consent forms. She argued for my care. She refused to leave my side. By Friday, my breathing was steady. My vitals were holding. I wasn't conscious, but I was alive. The Langfords never came back. But they did show up, just not at the hospital. They arrived at my grandmother June's house the following Friday. I watched the security footage later. Nathan pacing under the mesquite tree near the porch swing. Loretta tugging at her pearl bracelet, visibly irritated as the locksmith worked the front door. And Jocelyn, yes, the same Jocelyn who saved my life, stood a few feet back, arms crossed, silent, unreadable. They were there to collect what Grandma June had left me, the deeds, the jewelry, the equity in the home, but the door never opened for them, and there were no antiques, no documents, no keys, just a single envelope sitting on the dining room table, taped beneath the brass chandelier, a letter that shattered every illusion they had so carefully built. We lived in a stucco ranch on a quiet street in the historic Willow District of downtown Phoenix. Desert roses lined the walkway, and the terracotta roof tiles were always too hot to touch by noon. From the outside, we looked like a family who sent Christmas newsletters and hosted 4th of July cookouts with sparklers and bundt cakes. And we did. Nathan and Loretta Langford, my parents. He wore pressed khakis and smiled like a politician. She complimented people's hair in a tone that felt like criticism wrapped in ribbon. Then there was Jocelyn, smart, commanding, the kind of person who walked into a room like she already owned the blueprint. I was the quiet one, the neat one. I made honor roll and used color-coded highlighters. In school pictures, Jocelyn's grin stole the frame. Mine always hovered. Too polite to be bold, too careful to be proud. Jocelyn got the last brownie, the best seat in the car, the louder applause at every recital. Once, I asked Nathan why she always chose the movie on Fridays. Jocelyn needs the encouragement, he said. You don't. I used to think that meant I was easy to love. The truth came when I was 12. I'd crept downstairs past midnight, thirsty, only to hear them arguing in the kitchen. You've always favored Jocelyn, Loretta hissed. Because Evelyn Tessa isn't really yours, Nathan snapped back. She's not yours either, Loretta fired. The glass slipped from my hand and shattered on the tile. Footsteps. Then my door creaked open. I was already under the covers, holding my breath. She stood there for a moment, just watching. Then Loretta closed the door without a word. The next morning, I stirred my cereal slowly at the kitchen island, waiting. "I heard you last night," I said. Nathan didn't look up from the business section. Loretta calmly poured her coffee. "I know I'm adopted." A beat passed. Loretta gave one of her flawless, frosty smiles, the kind that felt like a pressed flower, delicate, preserved, but already dead. "Don't be ridiculous, Tessa. You must have dreamed it." And that was that. No denial, no acknowledgement, just silence, gaslighting, and scrambled eggs. That morning, I learned that in our house, truth mattered less than the appearance of peace. After that night, I worked harder to be perfect, harder to be useful, harder to be worthy. If I couldn't be loved for who I was, then maybe I could be kept for what I accomplished. I didn't want praise. I needed proof that I was worth something. I didn't just chase, I devoured them. I didn't just enter competitions, I won them. When I graduated as valedictorian in a desert-cool auditorium in Tempe, I wore the navy blazer Loretta had picked out without a word of praise. I got a full ride to Caltech. Not a card, not a hug. When I called to share the news, Loretta said, "Well, you always were efficient." At graduation, they came. Nathan clapped exactly 3 times. Loretta wore her oversized sunglasses indoors, smiling for the photos, then left early for a dinner reservation with Jocelyn. It stung, but I was already building something stronger than their approval. At 23, I co-founded a health tech startup with Jocelyn, my college roommate and realist friend. We built diagnostic AI to detect early neurological disorders through voice and eye movement, fast, accessible, humane. The company exploded. Panels, press, Forbes. At our launch gala in Scottsdale, Nathan raised a toast about raising visionary daughters. Loretta called me Tessa Grace all evening, like she was reciting a LinkedIn profile. Only one person ever saw me for more than my resume. Grandma June. She lived alone in a creaky craftsman bungalow near Roosevelt Row, the scent of cinnamon and old pages always in the air. She'd raised Nathan alone after being widowed young, and welcomed me every summer from the moment I discovered the truth. "You read like your mother," she used to say. She said it once, handing me a worn paperback of Jane Eyre. Always lost in thought, but fiercely bright. Just like her. I asked who my mother was. Grandma June paused, then said, "Someone who loved you very much, but wasn't ready. Someday I'll tell you everything." But someday kept getting postponed. Then came Thanksgiving, 3 years ago. We were all there. Me, Jocelyn, Nathan, Loretta, and June, who had grown thinner but no less sharp. The conversation turned to our company Series A funding round. June beamed. "I always knew Tessa would do something extraordinary." Loretta sipped her wine. "She's always been determined to prove herself." I stared at her. "Is that what you think I've been doing?" "Isn't it?" Nathan added, folding his napkin neatly. "It's common, really. Most adopted children go through a phase of overachievement." Jocelyn dropped her fork. I calmly set my napkin down. "You denied it for years." "We thought it was better that way," Loretta replied, already reaching for the cranberry sauce. June slammed her hand on the table. "That's enough, Loretta." But it wasn't. I stood, my voice cracked, but I didn't waver. "You never wanted me. You wanted a daughter who made you look good, not one who needed you." And I left. No calls, no replies. I changed my number. Only June remained in my life. Every Sunday without fail, her creaky little house in downtown Phoenix still felt like home. It was raining the night everything changed. That soft, low desert rain that makes familiar streets shimmer like illusions. I stayed late at the office. We were preparing a major update and I didn't want to leave unfinished work behind. Jocelyn told me to go home at 8. I didn't listen. 15 minutes from my apartment, a car ran the red at Halston and Maine. They told me later it hit the driver's side at 60. I don't remember the crash, just the silence after. That cold, electric kind that buzzes like a broken radio inside your skull. I was unconscious by the time I reached St. Mercy ER. They cut me out of the car. My ribs were shattered, brain bleeding, lungs collapsed. At 2:12 a.m., the hospital called my emergency contacts. Nathan and Loretta Langford. They came. They looked at me, broken, barely alive, and then turned away. "She's not actually our daughter," Nathan told the attending physician. If this story moved you, even a little, don't forget to subscribe. There's more to Tessa's journey, and in the next part you'll see how one letter turned silence into reckoning. It was informal, the paperwork never went through. That's what Nathan told the hospital. "He's not our responsibility," Loretta added, her voice crisp, emotionless. "No one asked if I was in pain. No one asked what I needed. They asked about costs." Without legal authorization, the emergency neurosurgery couldn't proceed. That's when Nurse Riley stepped in. She called Jocelyn. Jocelyn arrived just over an hour later, rain-drenched, wide-eyed, and furious. She signed the paperwork without blinking. She called our company. She sat by my bedside and read aloud from our project briefs as if we were back in the office. Riley adjusted my IVs and whispered updates to me at every shift change. She played our favorite acoustic playlists. She whispered, "You're not alone," even though, technically, I was. Legally, I was still a Langford. But that night, Nathan and Loretta told the hospital I wasn't. They chose the lie that made it easier to leave. And I would have died under that lie if it weren't for Jocelyn, for Riley, and for the kind of family you build, not the kind you're born into. Waking up was like being dragged out of a fire. My throat scorched from the ventilator. My arms were foreign. My skull throbbed with every shallow breath. But I was alive. Jocelyn was there when I opened my eyes. Riley, too, holding a warm cloth to my forehead and whispering, "Hey, you made it." I couldn't speak. I blinked. Once. It was enough. They stayed. Recovery was brutal. For days, even sitting up made me nauseous. Blinking too fast felt like falling through space. But I kept going. Because I remembered. I remembered the moment my parents turned away. A week after I was moved to a step-down unit, Jocelyn brought the news. Grandma June had passed. 6 months ago. Peacefully. In her sleep. They never told me. What I did receive was a knock on the door. A man named Mr. Grayson, her estate lawyer, stood there in a charcoal suit with a sealed envelope and a folder. "Your grandmother asked me to deliver this personally if she passed before speaking to you herself." Inside was a handwritten letter from June. She told me everything. My birth mother, her niece, Caroline, was just 18 when she had me. The father, gone without a trace. June had offered a solution, adoption within the family. Her son Nathan and his wife Loretta had been struggling for years to conceive. On paper, it sounded like fate. What she hadn't predicted was that Loretta would discover she was pregnant with Jocelyn just weeks after bringing me home. 2 babies, one biologically theirs. Or not. Over the years, June watched the gap widen. She brought it up with Nathan more than once. He always said, "I'll do better, Mom." But they never did. The adoption had been fully legal, every document stamped, every hearing filed. In the eyes of the state, I was theirs. And they knew it. But knowing and accepting are not the same. Mr. Grayson slid a second envelope across the tray in my hospital room. "They've filed for emergency conservatorship," he said softly. "They're claiming you're mentally unfit to manage your grandmother's estate." I stared at the name on the petition. Tessa Langford, respondent. They had left me to die, and now they wanted what June left me, not out of love, but out of greed. What they didn't know was the letter, or what I was about to do with it. I recovered faster than anyone expected. The pain was still there, but it didn't own me anymore. My steps were slow, my arm in a sling, but I had something stronger than fear driving me. The truth. June's house, my house, was still in probate, but Mr. Grayson got me access. I hired a security firm to change every lock and install surveillance across the property. "You'll be able to monitor everything remotely," the technician said. That was the point. Then came the letter. 3 drafts before I got it right. The first, too bitter. The second, too cold. The third, just right. It wasn't a confrontation. It was a mirror, one they couldn't look away from. I attached the hospital records, proof of the adoption, June's letter, and one final line. The cameras are recording. The day the Langfords arrived, I watched from Jocelyn's apartment. At exactly 2:07 p.m., Loretta's Lexus pulled into the driveway. Nathan stepped out first, adjusting his collar. Jocelyn lingered behind, eyes narrowed like she sensed something was off. They tried the front door. Locked. Called a locksmith, signed a waiver. Walked in like they owned it. Nathan went upstairs. Loretta headed straight for the antique hutch. Jocelyn froze. Until she saw the envelope on the dining table. Loretta tore it open. As she read, the color drained from her face. Nathan came down holding a vase, saw the documents and turned red. Jocelyn read over her mother's shoulder. Her expression didn't change. It collapsed. I watched it all in real time. No sound. Just the moment the performance cracked. And I realized truth doesn't need to scream to be heard. 3 days later, Jocelyn texted. Tessa, can we talk? Just us? I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. Copper and Sage Cafe. She was already there when I arrived, 2 coffees in front of her. You still take it black with 1 sugar, she said, nudging mine toward me. I nodded, waited. What they said at the hospital. I can't believe it. But they did. I know. I saw the footage, read the letter. I think part of me always knew something was wrong. She paused. I'm sorry. For being quiet when you needed someone, I didn't want to stop being their golden girl. Small steps, Jocelyn. That's all I can offer. I'll take them, she said. 2 weeks later, she moved into June's East Wing, said it was temporary. I didn't ask for a timeline. Nathan and Loretta filed one last lawsuit for emotional distress, claimed the letter and footage defamed them. The judge dismissed it with prejudice. An attempt to silence documented truth. The story hit local news. Their names vanished from charity lists. Eventually, they moved to Florida. No goodbye, no apology. But I wasn't waiting. Jocelyn brought Thai takeout the night the verdict came down. Congratulations, she said. For what? For finally being done with them. And she was right. A year later, the house glowed again. Soft lights, laughter, the table full of those who chose to stay. Jocelyn laughed, retelling startup stories. Riley passed bread teasing. You were in a coma and still more organized than half the hospital. Jocelyn, quieter now, had found her rhythm. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Grayson looked around and smiled. June would have loved this. The house had been updated, but I kept the lavender wallpaper, the dented molding, the memory. Upstairs, my office held something new. Bridge voice, a project for patients trapped in silence, just like I had been. I knew I was still in there, I once told Jocelyn. I just couldn't make them see it. Now maybe someone else wouldn't have to wait so long. That night, I stepped onto the porch. Fireflies danced across the yard. Room for one more? Jocelyn asked. I nodded. We rocked together, quiet, unspoken, like we had all the time in the world. If you've ever felt overlooked, unheard, or like the truth was buried beneath someone else's version of the story, leave me a comment. Tell me what you would have done. Or simply say, I see you, Tessa. And if my journey resonated, hit subscribe. Let this space be a reminder. You don't need to be loud to be strong. Sometimes survival is the statement.